The government called, get the vaccine, help save lives, don't spread it. No, so we trusted in that fact. And we trusted that it was safe and effective. And now knowing that they knew it wasn't safe and effective, and we trusted in that fact. And that's what ultimately killed my husband. And these people are playing a role of God right now and taking lives, and you cannot do that. The benefit didn't outweigh anything. So, the COVID vaccine was every day, multiple times a day, was, on TV and get the shot, and friends and family. Everybody's so worried, that people will die. And if you don't get the shot, you might, people may die because of being around you. So my husband and I talked about it, and, the government was asking us to take it to save lives. And it was proposed as safe and effective. And we trusted in that fact. And that's what ultimately killed my husband. So 4 or 5 days later after that shot, he woke up one morning very disoriented. He was repeating a sentence over and over again. I'm just getting ready for work. I'm just getting ready for work. And I'm thinking, oh, something's wrong, something's wrong. We bring him to the hospital, and he wasn't recollecting the year, president, things like that. They kept him overnight, and he was released the next day. And they said they didn't see a TIA, but he was presenting as a TIA. So he kept the appointment for the second shot at the end of April 2021. 4 to 5 days, almost approximately. Night sweats, fever, night sweats, disoriented, and he woke up one morning and said, look at the side. His spleen was all enlarged. So he went to, I didn't take him to the same hospital. I went to another hospital. He was brought in, and he had swollen lymph nodes in his chest area, swollen spleen, low platelet count. I think it was 77,000 at the time, which is pretty low. And they were looking for lymphoma. He was presenting with lymphoma. So he ended up spending, it's very sordid. He was there for 66 days. They transferred him to another hospital, doing biopsies, doing bone marrow, trying to find lymphoma. Every test was negative. And they kept testing him for COVID. Every test was negative. Finally, a research doctor was brought in because I went to the head of Northwell Health and said, he's slipping through the cracks. Nobody knows what's wrong with him. And every day he's worse. Because his platelet, everything was dropping. So academia came in. They finally got a diagnosis of something called HLH, cytokine storm. Yeah. HLH is a life-threatening condition. Children are either born with it. Usually children have it, primal, or secondary would be an adult. And secondary is extremely rare, but if you get it, something comes in your body that triggers it. So the only thing that came into his body was the Pfizer shot. And that's what at the end there was nothing else to blame. There was no cancer. So once HLH was diagnosed, he came home for 2 months, seeing the doctor every month that he was seeing. She's a blood doctor. He was on etoposide, which is like a chemo form, and steroids, heavy steroids. He was not himself. He came home, but he was, I guess, in a remission. But we went to see her every week, and he would have his blood drawn to check his platelets and his blood count. His antibodies, she would also test from, and they never went down. So the COVID antibodies from a vaccine, I guess after a time they should come down. His would never go down. It's almost like he was producing more. And he was doing all right, heavily medicated, not the same person. And our last time he was home for 2 months, and then in the end of September of 2021, he wasn't doing well. So we went back in to see her. And right on her table, he laid down and his eyes rolled back. He's lost speech completely. They had an ambulance bring him to Manhasset Hospital, and they intubated him. I don't know how long he was intubated. You know, it was a long time. He did come off of it, but he was. We were just all praying, you know, that he would be okay. He seemed, but his blood counts, his white blood cell counts were down. He was getting blood every day. He was getting transfusions. He was getting platelets every day. I remember asking, well, do these platelets have the vaccine in them? Do they have the antibodies in them, in the blood? Can we get blood that doesn't have it, you know? And they thought about it, and, you know, because if you're giving him more blood and it has the antibodies, it's going to make his condition worse. So actually my son was a match for my husband, an exact match. And my children were not vaccinated. The doctors said they can't be vaccinated because we don't know why, but there's something this vaccine did to him. And your children may carry the same thing, you know, that could potentially kill them. So 2 days before we had arranged for my son's blood to be drawn and, you know, set it all up with the blood bank, I forget, and my husband died in the hospital. This man just retired. He was 60, you know. Everybody loved him. He was one of those, everybody in my town would call him the mayor of Huntington, like he did for people all the time.
Vaccinating, right?
No, the government called, get the vaccine, you know, help save lives, don't spread it. No, so we trusted in that fact. And we trusted that it was safe and effective. And now knowing that they knew it wasn't safe and effective. I mean, I even brought with me the Pfizer documents of the trials, the adverse events, the 9 single-space pages of all the adverse events that were known in early 2021. But when it was rolled out to us, it was not even mentioned. My husband's illness is on there. I mean, it's overwhelming what's happened and what's coming out, and I wake up sometimes thinking, is this really true? But it is, because you don't want to believe it at first, you know. I question everything, and I wonder how far up it goes in our government, you know. Where does this stem from? Who decided to make this vaccine look good, you know, when they knew very well that it wasn't? And they're really inclined to do nothing still. You know, there are 2 bills in the House right now, HR 5142 and 43. So I'm going to be going to Washington next week with React 19 and tell my story, my husband's story, and just start awareness. You know, they have to be held accountable. And these people are playing a role of God right now and taking lives, and you cannot do that. You know, the benefit didn't outweigh anything. You know, you can't, you know, pick and choose, you know, who should live, who should die, when you know the side effects are severe and deadly. 1,200 people died from the trial. Nobody knew. Nobody still knows about it. It's the very deep anger that I have. I suppress it every day because I have to function. I have 3 children, you know. And I know this little bit I do maybe helps bring out the awareness and accountability, and justice has to be served. My husband can't go down as a statistic on a medical journal somewhere. He deserves far more. The ill that are vaccine injured deserve far more, and the people that lost their lives. I hope just nobody would ever have to go through this with the family and taking someone's life. And the government and the manufacturers knew. That's devastating. It really is.
Autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
pledged to find out what is driving the country's rise in autism.
Compiling medical records from a number of databases. He'll direct resources to study environmental factors, exposures, and external factors.
Scientific progress on this has been slow because scientists are frankly scared to ask the question.
Genes don't cause epidemics. You need an environmental toxin, and we're going to look at all the potential culprits.
With no a priori thumb on the scale, you can't look at that.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to the Secretary for finally saying from an important public platform that this is an epidemic and we need to find the causes and we need to stop it.
Other issues CHC has been pushing for years are finally gaining mainstream traction.
Today we're announcing we are removing industry members, pharma members from FDA advisory committees.
We're seeing reports that you're considering removing the COVID vaccine as a mandatory shot for children.
The recommendation for children was always dubious. The vaccine itself does have profound risk of myocarditis, pericarditis, even strokes.
Very, 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 very few people are still taking these things. In that sense, the mRNA vaccines for COVID in the marketplace are effectively dead.
We are working together to change the federal fluoride recommendations, and we're looking at the science now. There's a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and low IQ in children.
Health officials announced plans to phase out 8 artificial dyes from our food supply.
The FDA is effectively removing all petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply.
We don't have a surveillance system that actually works, and that is a crime. And we will do that right away. And I understand the perverse incentives that need to be changed right away.
When there's a political will to answer a question like this, it will happen.
We're going to change things for real this time.